6 on our ALEA team is going to be our co-host today, and our presenter this afternoon is going to be Olga Escamilla. So I'm going to open it up for just a moment to Lori Slayton with TWC to give us a greeting. Lori?
Maybe if I can get my camera. Hi, everybody. Welcome to webinar number 2. I'm very excited. This is where we're going to start really getting and giving some information and getting focused a little bit more. So looking forward to working with all of you. We have a tremendous group. I was just looking at our list. I call it the A list. So welcome.
Thank you, Lori. And I, at this point, am going to turn it over to Dr. Escamilla.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to data-driven decision making. And I just wanted to say hi. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off my video because I live out in the middle of nowhere. And I want to make sure that my internet is going to be stable for this presentation. So thanks for joining us. And let's get started. So again, welcome to Data-Driven Decision Making. And this is a module for the Administrator Leadership Excellence Academy. It was originally developed by Liz Moya, and I will be delivering the content. So thanks for having me. So our objectives today are, we're going to define data-driven decision making, the process. We're going to identify the characteristics of data-driven decision making, those characteristics. We're going to differentiate between qualitative and quantitative research. And then we're going to apply the data-driven decision making process for improved program outcomes. So I'm not sure if I'll keep saying the whole term or just say DDDM, but if I say DDDM, you'll know what I'm talking about, everyone. So let's continue. So make sure that you have the sample team's period of participation report that was placed in the community of practice. Does everybody have that? If we could see a show of hands, because that was placed in, I see some, yay, a couple, 4, all right. We want to make sure that you have access to it, that you can open it, that you could see it, or if you have it printed out, that's great too. If you have it printed out, pencil, highlighter, what have you. I'm not sure if you'll be using those, but we also want to encourage you to post your questions throughout the presentation. So there's a wealth of information that's going to be shared today, and we want to acknowledge any questions that may come up. So if we ask that when you see the icon, this icon here, the chat bubble, that you respond to the question at hand and type your answer in the chat. So I think Robin has placed the sample team's period of participation report in the chat for anyone who may not have been able to access it in the community of practice. So thank you, Robin. All right. So using the chat pod, we have our chat bubble here. Share examples of how you've used data in your everyday life. Think about data sources. How have you used that data in everyday life? Ooh, they're coming in fast. Going to the grocery store. I track participation and metrics to make decisions, says Amanda. Balanced checkbook when I remember. Armando, thanks for that. Felicia says the weather. Marla says budget. Making decisions regarding finances. Thank you, Sherman. Student performance and budget. Making decisions, says Desmond. Performance. Program review. Personal finance decisions. Right, everyday life. Budget tracking, mileage. Tracking my spending, says Amy. Budget, says Jordan. And Todd, thank you for that. He says, what's a checkbook? Awesome. Well, so today we're going to be focusing on the 2 approaches when using data. These 2 methods include research or problem-based inquiry, and the data-driven decision-making process. So let's continue. So thank you all for all those great ways that you use data. So let's begin with identifying what research is and what it entails. So according to the Journal of Statistics Education, research is a process of steps used to collect and analyze information to increase our understanding of an issue. So essentially, this is a problem-solving process to identify a solution. So now when we think of the term research, we might think back to the days of high school or college and not necessarily connect research to what we do at home or work. So the reality is that we're probably more familiar with the research process than we might think. And the research process includes these 3 steps: pose a question, collect data to answer the question, and then present an answer to the question. So as we make the connection of research to application at the program level, this problem-solving approach is just one way of using information for the purpose of continuous improvement. So the second approach is the data-driven decision-making process. So we'll be investing more of our time on this application as we continue. So what is the DDDM process and how does it differ from research? Well, this process is defined as the process by which educators examine assessment data to identify student strengths and deficiencies and apply those findings to their practice. So unlike research, where you're trying to use information to solve a problem, the DDDM process has a front-end approach. It gathers information in an organized manner to identify possible problems. So both approaches, they make decisions based on quantitative information or hard data rather than opinions, observations, or gut feelings. So whether conducting research or doing the DDM process, there's benefits to using data. It adds to our knowledge, meaning that educators use research and the information contributes to existing information about issues such as weather, to expand citizenship classes during an uncertain political climate, or developing an IET in an industry. So using data can also advance better practices that educators might try in their educational setting. It also improves our practice. This is important because it suggests improvements for practice, like having research results allows teachers and administrators to become more effective professionals. This means increased learning for students. In terms of our evaluative approaches, this signifies that there's more than one way to address issues. The trick is to determine which offers the most effective and reasonable application for optimal results. And it also informs policy. So when presented in a clear and summarized format, data-based evidence can influence policy guidance. For those of you who can recall the IET infancy stages, programs struggled to identify English language learners who were eligible to participate. So if individuals scored too high on an ESL assessment instrument, they didn't qualify for the IET. Yet if they scored too low, they might not possess the language proficiency to navigate through the IET course successfully. So using the research approach, a solution was created with the AEL letter 0217, assessing English language learners in the adult education and literacy program, where TWC authorizes English language learners to use the full range of tests approved for the English as a second language, adult basic education or adult secondary education programs listed in the Texas Adult Education and Literacy Assessment Guide. So this expanded flexibility allowed for ESL learners to participate in IET EL Civics courses. So this is a clear example of how the evaluation of data allowed change or allowed TWC to change program services delivery to positively impact more individuals. All right, so now let's take a look at what the DDDM process entails. I know you're curious because I've been saying it so much, and we're going to continue. So the DDDM process has 5 steps. There, 1, know your mission. 2, identify data sources. 3, organize your data. 4, analyze your data. And then 5, draw conclusions. So let's start with number 1, know your mission. So WIOA outlines a 4-year strategy that provides a range of employment, education, training, and related services and supports to help all job seekers secure employment while providing businesses with the skilled workers they need to compete in the global economy. So TWC, that's the WIOA. So allowing all job seekers to secure employment while providing businesses with skilled workers they need to compete in the global economy. So TWC states strategy 1, to increase workforce, secondary and post-secondary education and training outcomes. Strategy 2, so there are 4. So strategy 2 is to address demand. Strategy 3 is to increase system coordination and integration. And strategy 4, to improve performance excellence. So the other mission to consider is the one for your program. And that mission should be aligned in order to help you meet your program goals. So the DDDM process will assist you to specifically address TWC's 4th strategy, improve performance excellence. So this makes it possible to make calculated program decisions based on data, resources, and remove subjective opinions. So let's move on to step 2, identifying those data sources. So consider your day-to-day routine and the type of data sources you have access to that help you make daily decisions. List at least 2 examples of data sources in the chat. So someone said, hold please, can you please repeat which part, Jody? Let's go back about the data-driven decision-making process and how this process is going to help you specifically address TWC's 4th strategy to improve performance excellence. That makes it possible to make calculated program decisions based on data resources and remove subjective opinions. Okay, got it. All right, thank you. So thinking about identifying data sources, and you already mentioned some when we first started, but what types of data tools are available to you now? And some of you mentioned it. Mr. Martinez says bank statements, electric bill. Mary says CASAS assessment results, teams data for hours, progress, test results, GD manager for test results, essential ed results for lesson plans. Todd says teams in general. Beth says Google. Jennifer says teams and our internal database. Awesome. Okay, anyone else? These are great. Todd, Tableau, and we're going to talk about that, Todd. So thanks for mentioning that. Now, here are some additional types that you may have already listed. Maybe a Fitbit. Your Fitbit tracks a lot of information now. Maybe a rain gauge, electricity bill. I think Mr. Martinez mentioned electricity bill, water or sewage bill, gasoline usage, grocery bill, income tax, medical expenses, and vehicle maintenance. Very good. All right. Now let's look at 2 different types of data. So the two different types we're going to look at is qualitative and quantitative. So let's start with quantitative. Can someone read this definition of quantitative data? Patrice.
Quantitative data are used when someone is trying to quantify a problem or address the what or how. Many aspects of a pragmatic question can either be counted or compared on a numeric scale.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Patrice. So there's statistical analysis software that's often used to analyze this quantitative data. So we have two that I'm going to talk about really quickly. I'm just going to mention them. SPSS, which is a statistical package for social sciences, and it's a software package for statistics. And with this software, you can obtain the mean, median, mode, significant correlations in the data, and obtain statistically significant variables for formalized study, and so much more. So if you're looking to use the data or the information for a research project, you would probably use that statistical package. And then we have Tableau. And I think Todd had mentioned Tableau, and somebody said, I was trying to remember what it was called. So Tableau it's more of an organizational tool. It's user-friendly, and in that it gives you visual representations of data and breaks your data down to the class level. And it provides comparative analysis, and it also provides information as to how you're doing in meeting your target. So those are just some that I wanted to mention. I did want to mention Tableau because that is something that we are using in adult ed. So raise your hand or provide a reaction if you've seen this report before. So okay, I see 5. I see clapping, a thumbs up, raise your hand. Awesome. So we have going up. Very good. Thank you. So on the screen is a sample of one. It's a form of quantitative data available to you from Teams. This is a staff development report. So this is just a part of it. And this report provides PD activities for everyone in your program. This information is entered by your PD coordinator or your data entry person. So this is going to tell you what PD each individual has completed and how many hours they have because of our number of hours our staff should be meeting. So this individual looks like has completed 24 hours. They are way ahead of the game. All right. So here's another report from Teams. This is a participant roster with latest assessment. So on a scale of 1 to 5, how familiar are you with this report? 1 meaning low, and you can put it in the chat, or 5 very well. Okay, we have a lot of 4s and 5s, so there's not a lot that I need to say, but you can use this report along with the MSG and POP report to get a full picture of where each participant stands. So if you're entering your data in a timely manner, the MSG report will give you the latest assessment because the MSG is updated nightly. So very good. Thank you. So it looks like y'all are all pretty familiar with this form. All right, let's continue. So how familiar are you with a period of participation report? Once again, indicate in the chat, 1 for low, 5 for high. We have a 3, we have some 5, 4, 5, 4, awesome. Great, we have a lot of 5s. You all are gonna rock this. So Shara says 3. So the period of participation report, commonly referred to as the POP report, is one of the reports that's most frequently used. It provides a program side snapshot of current student enrollment. So it's updated nightly, again, based on the data that's been entered. Therefore, it's important for data to be entered in a timely manner in order to get the best data. So we'll be focusing on the POP report as we continue through the webinar. And again, Robin has placed the sample that we'll be talking about And you probably won't even need the sample if you are familiar with this pop report. I think someone put in the chat that they use it for their nighttime reading enjoyment. So thank you for sharing that. Just kidding. All right. So you should have the sample team's period of participation report available. So what are the major elements, just the major data elements in that pop report? And I just finished removing it from the screen. So let's see, what are those major data elements in the pop report? Not a quiz. Okay, Jody says last data service. Thank you, Jody. Participant ID, this is Sharman. Name, service date, start date, reportable. Oh my goodness, they're coming in fast. Reportable individual flag, participation start date, total hours, last direct contact hour, exiter data, class, participant flag, exit data, last data service. So that last data service is really important. HSC flag, HSC recipient, how many days since last service date? Awesome. Great. So one of the things that the teams report data elements are, and you all listed them all, participant flag. Were there any that we didn't list? 90 days past last date. There it is. Yeah, 90 days past last date, exiter flag. I think you pretty much mentioned all of these elements. The total basic education hours, total training hours, total proxy hours, and the total hours of all sources. So maybe yeah, y'all got them all. Awesome. So, all right. So here's another report, but this comes from the Division of Operational Insight. It's the NPR summary report, and it's based off of the monthly validation from every provider. Yeah, NPR, says Jody. That's right. How can you not know? This is a great report. The NPR provides a standing of how each grantee is doing in each of the performance targets by TWC. So this report is provided specifically to AEL grantees. So the NPR is going to give your program a good idea of where they stand based on the performance measures. Raise your hand or provide a reaction if you've seen this report before. I like that reaction. Oh my goodness, who's sharing that one? Todd. Thank you, Todd. I love it. That's a great one. All right, everybody. Oh, and Lori's crying. I love the reactions. Great. So we have quite a few individuals that are familiar. Okay, Mary says she gets it through her director. So very good. Thank you, Mary. Yes, if this is sent out to the programs, and if you're not familiar with it, then monthly performance summary report or NPR might be something you could request to have access to. All right, so let's move on to qualitative data. So thank you all. You're all doing great. This is more of a refresher to you. So let's move on to qualitative data. And qualitative data, it describes qualities or characteristics. And it is collected using questionnaires, interviews, observations. I was thinking even focus groups. That could be kind of like related to interview. And it frequently appears in narrative form. And it may be difficult to precisely measure or analyze, and depends upon what you're collecting.
Olga, we do have a question in the chat from Mary Springer. And I think this is in reference to the NPR report.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, is that available through Teams or is it sent out a different way?
You want me to take that, Olga?
Yes, please. I was going to say, Lori.
Hi, Mary. It goes out monthly to the director of the grantee. So there's a list that we send it out to, that's all of the directors, and usually they're next in line so that someone else is also getting it. But then they have the responsibility of making sure that everybody sees it. Good question.
Yeah, thank you, Lori. And Marla has her hand up. I don't know if you have a question, Marla, or if that was just left over from earlier.
Yeah, it's just left over. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Thank you, Olga.
Thank you. Great question. Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Beth. All right, so let's talk about, again, continue talking about this qualitative data. So this is an example of a student evaluation of class and program, and it provides information on how the student feels about the class location, delivery of instruction, and even the instructor. So this is something that I have experienced as a director, and I would provide this student evaluation in class and program each semester. We would have an unrelated individual go out without the teacher and provide this evaluation for our students so that we could gather data, gather information. So one of the things that we did was we took the information from the responses and we made it into bar graphs and pie graphs, and we made it into put it into numerical format so that we could better interpret that data. So that kind of gave us a good idea of, student feedback. There was also a section that they were able to make comments, and that's more of that qualitative data that we can collect and get specific feedback based on any comments that they shared. Another example that we want to share is a classroom observation form where an adult education supervisor or even an instructional lead observe the instructor and record responses based on what's observed. So they have a pre-conference, they have information about what type of class, the site, what time they started, classroom instruction, what was taught, if there was a lesson, if they, just everything you would want to observe an instructor doing, and a little bit about the teacher's role and a little bit about the required basic skills and instructional areas. So was this covered? So you have a pre-conference, you have your observation, and then you have a conference after. So this would be a good tool to couple with classroom data. So you're collecting different types of data. All right. So let's continue to step 3 of the data-driven decision-making process, which is organize data. So organizing data refers to managing information by similar criteria. So one example is comparing different sources of data to one singular criteria. This allows for a better picture. So rather than comparing one instructor to another, consider comparing the same instructor's performance from the semester or year before. And that's saying that if that data is available. So in adult education, there's a tendency to assign an instructor to a class based on student enrollment instead of teacher strength, maybe. So therefore, comparing the performance to another instructor is only applicable when all other factors remain the same. So to ensure accuracy, compare the same or similar data to each other. For example, comparing teacher A to him or herself, so long as the variables remain the same for the most part, meaning content, schedule, type of population, course length, resources, or special circumstances. You can add narratives to standing reports for reflection. So organize your data to include an explanation for the information that may appear inconsistent. For example, in one instance, a program ran an attendance report in December, which showed a large decrease in student attendance for a particular day for all providers in the area. So what does this mean? Should classes be canceled the following year due to low enrollment on that day? Is this the start of a trend? So in all actuality, the dip in attendance was the result of the Pope visiting the city. So this indicates an anomaly and it's likely not to occur again. And another example, one program showed a marked increase in the number of HSC attainments in August. There's an intensive fast track summer course that runs from June to August. And the instructor for this course only teaches during the summer and not any other time of the year. So the same results are not duplicated in other months. So this probably indicates a reflection of the instructor and instruction delivered, and that fast track summer course is effective. However, additional data shows that most of the same students are co-enrolled in a distance learning program geared for HSE. So could this be a factor? So putting all that data together is not enough. So correlations should be noted anytime there's a known factor in order to make a sound analysis. So make notes of all of these different factors, of all of these anomalies, these unique situations that have affected your data. So on another note about organizing data is that Excel can be helpful and a helpful tool, and it allows you to filter information in a multitude of ways that can save you time and energy, such as filtering data by specific data elements. And lastly, how you run a report in Teams affects the end results. So awareness of each field, such as 12+ hours denotation, that is key. And I see that there was a question. Todd, where did that come from? Which one, Todd?
That was a reference to that previous form, the one you showed for the classroom monitor.
Observation.
Yeah.
Okay, that came from me. That came from me. We would use that teacher observation form in the program where I was a director before. So I just shared that one.
I want a copy.
I could share it in the community of practice if you are interested in having that.
Sure.
Okay, I will do that. Someone note to self, remind me, please. All right, thank you. Thank you for that question, Todd. All right, let's continue. So let's move on to step 4, analyzing data. So in this step, the data prompts additional questions. 2 examples are, what did the assessment reports say about my students, my instructor, my assessment administrators, the accuracy of the data, the PD provided? What does my NPR report say about my program and my ability to use the data-driven decision-making process? And step 5. So based on our analysis in step 4, we move to step 5 and draw conclusions. This is where you ask questions. Can an outstanding example be used to replicate in another class? Does the data support continuing to do this things the same way? Here's some other questions that you might ask. So is there any inconsistent information that does not correlate to the mission? If so, what is the significance of this? So we're drawing conclusions based on all the information that we've identified from our sources, that we've organized in the data, and that we have analyzed. So now we're going to draw those conclusions. All right. So using the DDDM process is helpful, but only if we can remember the process. So here's a mnemonic to remember these valuable steps. My sister often attracts drama. M, and my for mission. S for sources. O for organize. A for analyze, and D for draw or drama. So my sister often attracts drama. So we've already discussed mission, We have identified the sources of data, some of those examples. Now let's talk about a little bit more about organizing the data. We'll be using the sample pop report. So if you have it handy. So step 3 again is organizing data. So how can this information be further organized? I mentioned using Excel earlier. Are there specific ways in which Excel could help organize the data? So using the pop report as a context, list examples in the chat of how the data from the pop report could be organized using Excel. All right, Armando says pivot tables. All right, Armando, you are showing your expertise here. Sort and filter. Sort and filter. Yeah, you could filter by teacher. Todd says he sorts by the 90-day column. Well, that's super important. It could be organized by the students who are about to leave the program. Mr. Martinez says send it to Armando. Hide the data you don't need. It's a huge table. Thank you, Beth. Yes, you could hide the information you're not really looking at that moment. Maybe sort by if they have a credential. And I think somebody said, Felicia says she agrees. It's got lots of great information depending on what you're using it for. Yeah, so it could be filtered to show how many hours your students have attended prior to exiting. All right. And Todd says he sends to all instructors for their particular students in reference to exit date for retention purposes. Very good. Thanks. Great example. Right. So using step 4 of the DDDM process, let's analyze the sample pop report and what this information is telling us. So looking at the pop report, what can you determine from what the report is showing? So I'm gonna go ahead and share. Does everybody have that up? I'm gonna go ahead and do a new share, pull up that pop report. All right, a lot of information. Who has no proxy hours? When they became a participant, awesome. And that would be under what? Participant start date, HSC success rate, when they became a participant, okay, the start date, yeah. Who is 90 days past service? And that would be, there's more. All right, if they're active. So what if you filter the report by the total hours? Then you can address the point where students are stopping out. Direct versus proxy. Thank you, Mary. Yeah, if they're active. All right. Great responses. Okay, I'm going to go back. All right. So again, based on the information from step 4, what type of conclusion can you draw from this data? So what would be the next steps? And are there preventative measures? Also consider who you would share this information with. And Todd mentioned that he shares this information with his instructors for retention purposes. So while you type your responses, also consider that data should not be used as a gotcha. So data is an effective means of identifying exemplary employees, effective systems, and working processes. So it's to help us improve what we're doing. Felicia says share with the career navigator. Ooh. Jody says share with program managers and coordinators. Amanda says share with teachers and follow-up staff. Jennifer says share with outreach and instructional teams for follow-up. Awesome. And Mary says teachers can use this to see who is about to go out of period of participation. And Charmin says data is shared with anyone who has contact with students. Great. And I think that's really important so that our staff are fully informed. And we're going to talk about, Charmin, I think you just led me into the next slide. So when we're drawing a conclusion, we need to bring in the whole team and strategize. So communication is key. So your leadership team, we have communication with the leadership team, communication with instructional staff, and then communication with non-instructional staff. So your leadership team may consist of your program assistant, your quality assurance, your instructional lead, maybe program assistant, maybe your distance learning lead, career navigator, standards coach, assessment supervisor. Yes, Armando, catering to the right audience. Your instructional staff, maybe your part-time, your full-time, or your on-site, or your remote, your new hires, and your instructional lead for your instructional staff are communicating with non-instructional staff. So your non-instructional staff would be your data entry, your assessors, or even your front line. Who is that face of your program? So all these three groups are integral in knowing how they contribute to the bigger picture. So that communication is key. So any other comments? In terms of, Armando says, again, catering to the right audience regarding reports. What do you share? I think that's a good point, Armando, if that's what you're meaning. What do you share with what individuals? Like, what do they need to know for their specific function and how that's going to impact what they do on a daily basis? All right. So what I want to do at this point, if there's no questions, comments, we'll go ahead and continue. Oopsie. Let's review our objectives, what we covered today. I know it was a lot of information and it was really fast. We defined the data-driven decision-making process. We identified the characteristics of the decision-making process, and we differentiated between qualitative and quantitative research. And we also applied the DDM process for improved program outcomes. So we went through all the steps, and I do want to leave you with this quote. And as I complete this information, I want to go ahead, we're going to go ahead and go into AEL assignments. And Amy, are you ready?
I am. Thank you, Olga. Let me turn on my video. Olga, if it's okay, I'd actually like to share my screen because I made a few little clarification updates as we came in this morning. Is that okay? Awesome.
Hi, yes.
Thank you. Awesome. All right. I am going to open this up, everybody. Welcome back, everybody, and thanks, Olga. I love listening to that presentation. I take something different from it every time, and it really is a great tie-in to what's coming up and framing for us what we'll be doing next. So I just want to remind you guys that we will be having our full day training session upcoming on December 1st virtually, and a half day following together with the Instructional Leaders Excellence Academy folks too. So that'll be an exciting morning when we all come together. At that training, we're going to be digging into our MLQ leadership styles, and I'll talk more about that assessment that you'll be taking in preparation for December 1st in just a minute. And to build on what Olga was sharing with us today, we're going to dive into collecting and using qualitative data a bit more in our training session on the 1st. We'll be looking at the Plan, Do, Study, Act framework and starting to set SMART goals. And importantly, we're going to be really looking at developing your improvement projects, your capstone project for this academy, and getting started with ideas for that. So in terms of the capstone project, I really just want to draw your attention to some of the dates that are upcoming. The project, as we said in the orientation, is something that you'll be working on throughout the academy. It's certainly not a one and done, and you're going to have a lot of support for it. But the dates that you see on the slide in front of you are kind of the flow of how that work will be getting done. So the first thing we want to ask you to do is, after today and before December 1st, take some time to go into the portal. There's a past projects, improvement projects folder, and we've put in some sample projects from prior cohorts, prior ALEA participants, to just share with you what they created, to give you a sense of what's in there, how it works, the types of projects. And we'll be doing some work on December 1st and 2nd, looking at those projects and kind of talking more about what makes for a good project, what some of the challenges might be that you could face, kind of thinking about your project. And we'll have more information and some discussion time to help you begin to really think about, what kind of project do I want to do for the Leadership Academy? Then when we come together again on January 5th, we're going to ask you to bring 2 possible projects. So you don't have to decide. You might be thinking about a couple of different ideas for your improvement project, and you can bring at least 2 of those ideas to talk about in January. After the January 5th webinar, you're going to be submitting an initial project plan in the portal. It's just kind of a way to keep you thinking and moving as you develop your ideas, and an opportunity to share those ideas with your colleagues and with us as facilitators to give you some ideas and feedback and potential resources to help you with your project plan idea and the development of that. In February, when we come together again, we'll be doing more work around your topic, and you'll be again sharing and working with others who have similar topics to yours to kind of brainstorm and tap into the hive mind to help you with your project. You'll submit some draft slides and your plan again in February, and then we'll come together for small online group meetings where you'll do kind of a preliminary presentation, ask some questions, get more help, and then your final presentation will be due on April 8th, and getting ready for you to present that to our community, both ALEA and ILEA, on April 22nd at our final session. So you don't need to remember all this now, and these slides will also be in the portal, and we'll remind you as we go, but I just wanted to give you a sense of how that work will be done and what we'll be doing. Specifically, to get ready for our next session on December 1st, we're going to ask you to read the 6 fundamental skills every leader should practice. That reading is posted in your portal. We assigned it, I think, at the end of the orientation, so you should have it, but just a reminder that we'd like you to have that short reading done by December 1st. And to complete that leadership framework assignment we also gave you at the end of our orientation, which was handout 3. It's really applying that framework to your own, thinking about your own set of skills and what you want to develop. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be asking you to complete this MLQ leadership self-assessment online before December 1st. The leadership assessment really measures a range of leadership qualities and behaviors. It's a private link that we'll be sending you in an email after today. I think it will come from Deb Hargrove and also from Mind Garden. You'll get an email from Deb about that, and then a link to your personal link. And it's for you to fill out, and it's really to help you think about your own leadership skills and get a report. You'll get a report back after you submit it from the company that has designed and managed this leadership assessment. and you want to take a look at that report and bring it with you to the December training. So that, I wonder if there's any questions. Deb says, thanks, Deb. I'll be setting up your accounts on Friday morning for the leadership assessments and you'll get an email. Wonderful. So if there aren't any questions about what comes next, we'll be in communication with you, obviously, as we get ready for that, and we'll be posting information in the portal, but you can always reach out to myself or Hannah or any member of the T-Call or TWC team if you have any questions. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Olga.
Thank you, Amy. So any questions? Last call for questions. All right. So one other item that we will be sending out a survey on Friday, this Friday, to determine whether session 2, which is February, will be conducted as a face-to-face or if we'll continue virtually. So please be on the lookout for that email with a link to the survey. So we'll be asking that you complete the survey by on or before November 19th. So it's a fairly quick survey, yet you might need to gather more information before you respond. So it'll be coming out on Friday afternoon, we are hoping. So keep an eye out for it. So if there are no other questions, I do want to say thank you for joining us today and in covering how to use the data-driven decision-making process. And we look forward to hearing from you. And Deb said, I see some of you have been, Deb, would you like to unmute and speak? Because I think what you have to say is really important about Skillsoft.
Oh, thank you, Olga. Hi, everyone. I was just going through and perusing the Skillsoft site myself. I had finished one of the assignments that we had done on the building your teams, and I printed out a report to see who else had been active. And a couple of you have actually already started, and you're perusing other courses that really aren't assigned, but I'm so excited that you're doing that because there is so much information in that website of all those courses that is just phenomenal. I'm just very excited. If you haven't started, please take a look, peruse around. We're only asking you to complete a few things, but we want you to do as much of it as you can because it's all fantastic. Thanks, Olga.
Thank you, Deborah. And thank you, everybody who's gotten in there and started. Like Deborah said, there's a lot of great information. So we appreciate you joining us today. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your day. And Beth says, thank you for your participation. Yes, thank you all. And I put in the chat, you know, it sounds like y'all are very familiar with all these reports. So it's going to be great to be able to apply the information that the data we collect and analyze as we continue throughout the LEA. So thank you, everybody, and you'll have a great afternoon.